what Boomer Esiason's recent Matthew Stafford comments. I'll let the Niners guys take it away. Whoever wants to go first, you think you got this one, Vish?
All right, so let's start. So let's break down what he said first, right? Recently, Boomer Esiason basically went on, was it a podcast, Grant? He went on a podcast or some radio show and basically said that he's hearing that Matthew Stafford wants out. Now, I don't know how connected Boomer Esiason is to Matthew Stafford. I've never heard him break news on Matthew Stafford, but he's a phenomenal quarterback, maybe like one of those guys who's not a Hall of Famer, but pretty close, and he's a really good player. And I'm the biggest Matthew Stafford.
Clearly, you just put him in the Hall of Fame. Wow. All right. Okay.
I mean, he made it to a Super Bowl. They say he was pretty good. I didn't watch him, you know.
Oh, I thought you said Matthew Stafford was a borderline Hall of Famer. No, Boomer Esiason. Okay. No, you're right.
I mean, I'll feel that way one day about Matthew Stafford, especially if he makes the career moves that I expect him to make. But, yeah, so he basically said that he's hearing that Matthew Stafford wants out. And, you know, for me, this is like, oh, my God, my birthday has come early. This is Christmas come early because I've been all over. Like, I really want Matthew Stafford to be the next 49ers quarterback. And it's because I think it's a mix of the fact that he's never had organizational structure, stability, and him in this offense with his physical talent would be just insane. So let's kick it off to you, Grant. Tell me, how did you feel when you heard about this? Do you think it's feasible for the 49ers? Do you think it's the move they should be making? I know you've been breaking it down a lot today, but give us something new right here.
It's definitely feasible. It is absolutely feasible. I don't think Deshaun Watson is feasible. Matthew Stafford is feasible if they want to do it. So it's there if they want. I think they would have to compete. I mean, they're not the only team that would want Matthew Stafford. And my question to kick it off is, what teams above the Niners in the draft order would also be interested in his services?
Washington.
Wait,
they're below somehow. I mean,
that's right.
Yeah, they would be a team that I think. Obviously, they need a quarterback. They have pretty good structure on the defense. Pretty solid O-line. Scary Terry McLaurin. That's one team that I really think could be interested in him. Because we don't know if Alex Smith's going to be back, but yeah,
we're going to get.
Regarding the football team, though, it is actually a really interesting point. We'll get into it a bit more in a bit, but it's a really interesting point only because Martin Mayhew now went there, and Martin Mayhew left the 49ers to go there, and Martin Mayhew is the one who drafted Matthew Stafford. So maybe there's a bit of a connection there still, and Martin Mayhew still wants him. I think the one team you really got to look out for is Denver. It seems that George Patton isn't convinced with Drew Lock for sure. Denver has theoretically those weapons, right? Cortland Sutton, before he tore his ACL, was trending towards being a top 10 receiver. Jerry Jeudy gets open. KJ Hamler is explosive as anybody in the NFL. Noah Fant, excuse me, I almost called him George Fant tackle, but Noah Fant is a really good player, and Garrett Bowles in their line has improved, and Fangio's on basically a year that they have to make the playoffs. So getting Matthew Stafford would provide that for him. But ultimately, I don't want to talk about those other teams, Grant, because those other teams are not going to get Matthew Stafford. The San Francisco 49ers are going to get Matthew Stafford. I'm going to keep saying it, and I'm going to speak it into existence.
Hold on. So let me just be the devil's advocate real quick. And Blake, Vish, you guys can rebut me, but you guys are Midwesterners. You guys have seen a lot more Matt Stafford. I'm looking from the Bay and I'm from a way far view. And all I'm saying is I've been talking to Coach Johnston a lot today. You guys may have interacted with him on Twitter. He's very smart too. And I got to say, he's opened my eyes a little bit. He's made some points about Matt Stafford, and I want to relay some things that we've been talking about. And you guys, I want to hear your rebuttal because let's just say the guy's physical gifts are not in question at all. One of the strongest arms of all time. It's not quite Josh Allen, but it might be. I mean, it's right there. And he can move. He's terrific. But is he a top 5 quarterback in the NFL? No. Is he a great quarterback? No. Is there some type of limitation there? Yes. What is it? I don't know. But what you can look at is the fact that he's never won a playoff game in his life. He's only been to 3. And you say, you know what? He's in Detroit. Detroit's a bad organization. Detroit. He gets this pass because he's in Detroit. Okay. And some of that's true. But you look at a quarterback who isn't as physically gifted, doesn't get the pass because of his gifts, but was also in a terrible organization. You know who I'm thinking about?
Yeah,
About
you're going to say Phillip Rivers.
No. About the same age.
Oh, same age.
Andy Dalton. He was in Cincinnati. Cincinnati stinks. It's a terrible organization. He's about 3 months older than Matt Stafford. Their stats, regular season stats, are freaking identical. Matt Stafford's 0-3 in the playoffs. Andy Dalton's 0-4. Matthew Stafford is better than Andy Dalton. But I'm just saying, you look at Andy Dalton, people are like, ugh. You look at Matt Stafford, people are like, oh my God, I'll give 2 first-round picks. I'll give 2 firsts and a second. So all I'm saying is, Matthew Stafford's cool. He is a top 10 quarterback. I like Stafford, but he's expensive. And I think there are legit questions about why he couldn't win at all in Detroit on a significant level.
All right, sure. Blake, why don't you rebut to this one first?
Yeah. So my thing with talking about the Bengals, they aren't the best organization, right? But Marvin Lewis at least brought some stability to that team, and they had some loaded rosters. Like, when you look back, they had some pretty good rosters. Those defenses were nothing to snuff at. Yeah, they were perpetually underperforming in the playoffs. You could say that and bring that argument up, and I would agree.
Hey, but Matthew Stafford is better than Andy Dalton. I'm not trying to argue. Yeah. I'm just trying to say, like, if you think of him in that context, like he's not as sexy. He's not as sexy. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, compare his number to Dalton. Like, how much better is he than Dalton? That's all I'm saying. So it's not fair. I'm not saying Dalton's better. But I mean, hey, why couldn't this dude ever win a playoff game? I mean, I know that's a terrible organization, but if Tom Brady were a quarterback on the Lions, he'd win a playoff game. If Russell Wilson were a quarterback on the Lions, he'd win a playoff game. There's that upper tier that just wins no matter where. So he's not in that. He's just not.
He's not paid like that tier currently, and 2, they're not going to have to pay the price to get him of what you would have to pay to get an Aaron Rodgers, a Russell Wilson, a Patrick Mahomes, and Deshaun Watson. So those are the 2 points.
That is true.
He fits right in that second tier with guys in his career. Was Tony Romo, Matt Ryan, Carson Palmer, Phillip Rivers, Big Ben Roethlisberger. They fit in that category. Big Ben maybe.
Okay, so we're talking tier 2 quarterbacks for sure.
Right. He fits there. And he's really physically talented, right? We all agree. And here's the big difference between him and, say, Dalton, because you have to look a little beyond the numbers, right? The first thing with him is that the playoff win thing is so like, well, if there was one.
Because Dalton melted down in the playoff. Dalton was awful in the playoffs.
He was
Stafford wasn't like that. Stafford wasn't like that. No. Stafford's better than Dalton. I'm not saying – I'm not.
Playoff win though.
I'm just trying to make it a point. Yeah.
If you remember against Dallas, they were basically a pass interference call away from winning that game. If that pass interference, like it was like the New Orleans Rams pass interference, but it's the Detroit Lions, so it's not as egregious because the Lions are going to lose. That's what the Lions do. But that's one thing with him. The other thing is he's never had a run game.
Never.
He's never had a defense that you can rely on and say that's a terrific defense for an extended period of time.
1 year he had.
Right. And then what with his receivers, everyone says Calvin. Like Calvin's one guy. Okay, you have Calvin Johnson. You want Titus Young, who was getting arrested every week for a year in 2013. You want Nate Burleson, who was passed around the league for 3 teams. They had Tony Scheffler, Brandon Pettigrew. How many different guys has this guy kind of made it work with? And I think the other thing is you got to look at a guy's upside beyond his system, right? Andy Dalton played with some good play callers. Matthew Stafford has never gotten a schematical advantage that you would say is top notch.
Hold on. Let me stop you right there. The Andy Dalton thing was a red herring. Let's never mention his name again. He's off the point. Here's the comparison, because we're talking tier 2 quarterbacks, and Andy Dalton isn't in there. Stafford is. Who's a better quarterback? Matthew Stafford or Matt Ryan?
That's the question, right? We got to see Matt Ryan for 1 year with Kyle, MVP.
Who's better?
My point is Stafford, 2 years with Kyle, MVPs.
5 years younger. 5 years younger.
Right.
But who's better?
I'd say Stafford right now. Stafford.
Like, what do you think?
Right. We're saying like right now, like if I had to get either one of them, or you're saying career?
I mean, Stafford's 33. Ryan's 36. They're pretty much who they are. Who's better?
Stafford right now for sure. Just
Stafford,
dude. Okay. He's also like Matt Ryan's much more immobile, and you can see his age being like more shown. I feel like Stafford's the type of dude with his arm. He could play till he's like 37, 38, 39. Like he has the arm talent. He's pretty mobile for a guy that like he's not Lamar Jackson, but he's also not like Jared Goff. Like he's in that echelon of like pretty decent mobility, right?
Can I argue? Can I rebut? Can I rebuttal?
Sure.
Like what I'm saying, I agree. Everyone would have to agree that Stafford is more mobile than Matt Ryan, and Stafford is more mobile than Tom Brady. But Stafford takes more hits than they do. Stafford missed 8 games in 2019. Stafford finished 2020 with broken ribs. He's a tough guy. But I think the greatest quarterbacks have a way of avoiding hits, avoiding injuries, kind of like the Frank Gore effect at running back. And all I notice is that Stafford gets knocked around in ways that even Matt Ryan doesn't. I actually would. Okay. So go ahead.
I disagree, right? Because I actually think the biggest problem with the Atlanta Falcons the last 2 years is that Matt Ryan has gotten knocked around and Matt Ryan has taken beatings. And that's why I think Matt Ryan looks like a quarterback that everybody says he's no longer Matt Ryan. You know, he's a guy that's going to retire in a couple of years. Not everybody's Brady, blah, blah, blah. Because their offensive line play has been terrible. There's a reason they drafted 2 offensive linemen in the draft this year. It's because they have
got stacked a lot.
Right.
He did get sacked a lot, but he missed 1 game last year. I don't know if it was for injury or whatever. He might have been. He missed 1 game in 3 in his career.
Right. So Stafford's been documented, right, because he missed the 8 the year before with the back, and then this year, because I think it's been prevalent in Niners Twitter because everybody started putting his name out there. So then people are commending his toughness, but that also gives you a little bit of an eye or wow, he's playing through like 7 injuries right here. So while it's kind of a double-edged sword that way, I think the ultimate thing and the reason that I think they're similar, right? I think Matt Ryan's a little better upstairs and Matthew Stafford's physical ability is better than Matt Ryan. I think the big thing is that Matt Ryan got that run game with Kyle for a couple of years and he did what he could do. Stafford is yet to have anything protect him other than the fact that Matthew dropped back 35 times. You just got to sling it. If we win, it's because of you. But if we lose, it's also because of you because we have nothing else to provide. And I think that run game would do him wonders.
I think Matt Ryan's a better quarterback than Matt Stafford, even though Matt Ryan's a little older. Matt Ryan won playoff games before Kyle Shanahan got there. I mean, Matt Ryan won playoff games when his coach was Mike Smith and Dirk Cutter and Mike Nolan. I mean, he's really good. You could argue he's underrated. Atlanta's not a great organization. Yeah, he had Julio Jones. Matthew Stafford had Calvin Johnson. I think there's a lot of similarities between the two, and I really feel strongly that Matt Ryan's a better quarterback than Matthew Stafford, although I would say they're both in the same tier, and you're splitting hairs. But Matt Ryan's 4-6 in the playoffs. He's a hell of a player, and maybe what's sticking out in my mind is I was at the game 2 years ago when he beat the Niners. It was very impressive. I mean, it was very gutty. He didn't have a lot. He had Julio Jones and himself, and he found a way to win. The Niners were flat that day, but it's funny when you're in attendance of something like that, it really colors your opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Blake, I like this point. I think you would agree with this one.
I mean,
true.
Yeah, true.
He had Drew Brees, but, true.
Oh, my bad.
And Cam Newton.
So, Blake, you got anything to add before we put a bow in this conversation?
There is one thing that I do kind of agree with on Grant, and I think he was kind of alluding to it with the Dalton thing, but there is the excuse for Stafford. Like
the Detroit pass.
Yeah, you give him it doesn't matter that he's never won. It's it's all oh, if he had this, if he had that. And I do agree that it's some sense he has been let down by his team a lot. But there is the fact that you can't just play hypotheticals with a guy all day. And I think that's what you were alluding to, Grant. And I do tend to agree with that. Because I remember, I think it was 2013 or 2012 was when they had an insane defense. Remember Nick Fairley and Ndamukong Suh. Jim Schwartz was the coach, I believe, or DC.
Yeah.
And they had a pretty good team.
They did. They had a really good defense that year. The Niners kind of embarrassed them. But they went a year where they went 15-1, didn't they? I mean, they had some
it was 12-4 was their best year.
12-4. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
They won the NFC North. They beat
They
beat Rodgers when he got concussed the game. Their defense was insane, but I do kind of understand what you're saying. It's basically you're just saying you can't fault Matt Stafford because he hasn't had a good scheme around him.
Right. And all I'm saying is truly great quarterbacks kind of overcome that to a degree. And I feel like Matt Ryan has shown that more in Atlanta, even away from Kyle Shanahan than Stafford has in Detroit is all I'm saying. And I think we'd all agree that Matthew Stafford isn't a great quarterback. He's a very good quarterback.
So just to wrap up kind of this conversation, I was really going to just drive home that specific point, Grant. It's because none of us sit here and say, even though his physical talent says he's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL, none of us are actually saying that. What we're saying is he's a guy 8 to 15, where with the right coaching, he could be one of the 5 best guys. He's not the Mahomes, the Rodgers, the truly transcendent type players. And then the last thing in regards to the 2014 team, so that was the team that lost to Dallas, right, in the wild card game. Was it, or was that the team that lost to New Orleans?
No, that was a team that lost to Dallas because then there was the Dez catch, and then there was the game which shall not be spoken of, the NFC Championship game, and then the Malcolm Butler. I believe it was
right. So the 2011 was the year they lost to the Saints, and then 2014 was the Cowboys game. And in that game, they did have a very rough pass interference call. I did want to reiterate that didn't go their way. So it's unfortunate to really
be the reason they lost. I don't know, man. There was a lot of time in that game, and that call was big.
It happened with 6 minutes left, and Cowboys scored on that possession. I think they went up 2 possessions and basically ended that game.
I mean, there's 60 other minutes. Like, I'm not going to say that it didn't.
No, absolutely
hinder
not.
the game.
Absolutely not. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there was another variable to that. I mean, obviously, I'm biased in this conversation. You won't find a bigger Matthew Stafford fan that's not in Detroit than me. But, so I just wanted to put a bow on it that way.